Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters, and I am your host, Dane Waters. Anyway, it's always a pleasure to be back here with all of you. So I have my guest today. We're going to talk about Ukraine, Sasha Saienko. How are you, sir? How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. Yeah, thank you for having me here on your show.
Well, you were on my show like in my first season. You were on my show, I think, and we were talking about the war in Ukraine because you're in Kyiv. You are what was your title? The former minister of the cabinet of ministers, or what? Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was the Minister of the Cabinet Ministry in 2016, 2019. So it's like a head of the office as a General Secretary of the government.
What's crazy is that when we talked, all those years ago, I say all those years ago, it seems like an eternity ago, we talked about how long this war is going to last, and the war is still going on. It's crazy. So okay, so here's the question for you. Um, we have the war in Iran that's going on. We've got the world is just going nuts. Help us understand why the world should still care about the war in Ukraine.
The situation with Iran or in Iran is the problem because Ukrainians have some concern about the situation that this war in Iran, like actually might shift focus away from Ukraine toward this conflict. And it's a question because we do need money, we do need ammunition, we do need international support in order to win the Russia. Yeah, and we do see this risk. But I do believe that Americans and Europeans, they actually support Ukraine. They believe Ukraine. They understand who is a good man and and that the Russia is evil. So if you believe in the values in a democratic world, so we should still support Ukraine because we fight not for ourselves but for Europe. We defend these principles. We defend these values. This is why this war is very important. If we allow Putin occupy Ukraine or to win, it shows that this authoritarian regime can use their power and to, I don't know, to occupy another democratic independent countries. But China can understand the situation and go to attack Taiwan. So no rules.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, listen, as you know, I'm a huge supporter of Ukraine. I've been a supporter and promoter of U.S. greater U.S. involvement in Ukraine. But you're exactly right. What the world needs to understand is that if you allow Russia to win, if you allow Russia to take territory of another sovereign nation, and there's no penalty associated with it, then, as you said, China's going to do it. Other countries are going to do it, and it's a precedent that can't be allowed. Democracy matters, freedom to matters, and if the world doesn't collectively try to protect those values, then it's going to be like an all-out global war. So listen, you have five kids,
Yes.
and so how are they dealing with the conflict and the war? I mean, what's going on with them?
It's like very complicated question because they go to school, to kindergarten, and in Kiev, I'm particularly in Kiev, I live in Kiev. So we have a lot of like drone attacks, rocket attacks. So, all the signals, all the alarm signals, and it's too difficult to see when your children, yeah, which go to school, yeah, they go to shelter every 2 hours, every 3 hours. Sometimes they study all the day in the shelter without daily light, and it's I fully understand that somehow it's effect on their mood, on their health. Yeah, so they become some nervous. Yeah, mm, but it's our home, so we try to protect them. Yes, we are Ukrainians. They do have this resilience. Yeah, so during this winter, it was a very terrible winter. The temperature was like minus 30 degree, 25 degrees. There wasn't any heating and gas supply. We had these blackouts. There was no electricity. for several days. Yeah, it was such a huge challenge for Ukrainians. Yes, we go to village, we have some country house, we try to organize some heating using wood, etc. Yeah, so it's not easy, but we still believe we have this such feature as resilience. We believe in our victory. We should defend our country. So we should be united here. It's not my situation, and we can go somewhere and say you should fight. No, we should
Well, I
be
think
we should stay here.
yeah, well, I think that this is what the world needs to know. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you as well is because Ukrainians do have phenomenal resilience. I mean, as we all have talked about, is that most countries and most people thought that Ukraine would fall within 72 hours, and here we are 4 years later, still fighting this war, and it's because of I mean, the world can give you weapons, but you guys have to fight the war. And you continue to fight the war. And not only just the soldiers, but it is the families that support the soldiers on the front line, the family members on the front line. And I remember when I was there the last time, I met with a lot of wives and mothers of prisoners of war, and the fact that they continue to support is what's critical. And I think Russia has hoped that Ukraine would be divided, that would cause the government to fall. But it's impressive and amazing the resilience of those of Ukrainians. So, but governmentally, I mean, I have to ask this question. I mean, as part of the conflict, President Zelensky has chosen not to hold elections. I mean, he's exceeded his legal mandate of how long he can serve in office. Um, talk to me a little bit about the political ramifications. Is the support for Zelensky still strong? Do people still believe in unity, or what's going on that front?
When this peace process actually have started here, we do believe in this peace process. But because maybe of the situation in Iran, this process has stalled a bit. And the situation, the economic situation in Ukraine, because of this conflict, maybe is getting worse. Yeah, we had some problems with supplying the ammunition, with cooperation with international donors, because we do need money for this war. And also, we see the first signals of the problem in the parliament. Um, it's too difficult to push them to vote for unpopular bills, to raise the taxes, to raise the gas prices. Yeah. So IMF still needs some like complicated and some difficult decision from the parliament. So we'll see. So this spring will be very difficult, and we will see. Back to Zelensky, um, maybe Ukrainians, they do want some peace, if not peace agreement, but see some ceasefire, because it's too difficult to be in war more than 4 years. Yeah, but we want to see some just peace. Yeah, so we understand how many victims we have as a result of this war. So, and it's not fair when during this peace negotiation, Russia wants to occupy more territory than it has now. So it wants like all Donbass, all this eastern region of Ukraine, and I guess it's not a fair deal in our situation. So we have this resilience. We are ready to fight. We have a huge part of our army. They are volunteers. They leave their families, their house, and they fight for freedom for their country. And like we do have a strong support from North countries, from Baltic countries. So we see the first signals of some not like like these problems with in EU with voting for Ukraine, with Hungary, with Slovakia, but we see the strong support from Baltic countries with North European countries. So we see some regional unions which already support Ukraine, Great Britain. So thank God we do have some strong allies, and we are ready to fight. But we do want peace. We do want to stop this war.
Well, let's talk about this. So, from a Ukrainian standpoint, I mean, I mean, I know you talk about a ceasefire, but what are Ukrainians willing to accept now? Because, it's very clear that we've gotten to a point, sadly, I think a lot because of where the U.S. president is, where kicking Russia out of Ukraine is just not a reality. I mean, it's just not, sadly. So, what are Ukrainians willing to accept for the price of peace?
So, like we have like our official like position of Ukraine during this negotiation is that we have this front line. So somehow we can stop on this front lines like Korea scenario. So and start some negotiation. What can we do with this territory, neutral status, so, language, and other issue? But Russia wants more, so they want it want this territory which it haven't occupied yet. So this is a problem. So now Russia didn't occupy all Donbass and Lugansk Oblast. So the issue of this, like if you stop on this front line, how we see the situation now, it can be some compromise with Ukrainian society. I do believe that if we will have some referendum or voting for this position, it can work. Yeah. So to stop on this front line and to start negotiation, what we can do next with that territory. But I see that Russia is not ready to stop. It continues attack. We saw yesterday, I read some latest news, and they actually, Russia started the spring campaign, military campaign attack north of Ukraine, Sumy, Kharkiv region, Zaporizhia, and of course Donbass. So, and this situation with Iran, when we see like the situation with the gas prices, of course, it's a huge advantage for Russia to get more money for this war. It's a terrible situation when the US decrease the level of sanction on Russia and give them like possibility to get more money to
No.
buy weapon and to kill more Ukrainians. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, it's nuts to think that, I mean, once again, you see President Trump, as you said, reducing the sanctions on Russia during this period of time, claiming that it's because to help gas prices around the world, but at the same time, he's rewarding an evil human being. I mean, he's rewarding them, and you're right, it's going to lead to greater death among Ukrainians. Some people argue that one of the benefits, which I argue there's very few of them, one of the benefits to
Mhm.
the war in Iran is that, Russia will have a difficult time getting more of the Shahed drones and the ballistic missiles, and and that may, cause issues. My concern is that, Russia has, and Putin, I should say, has no interest in ending this war anytime soon, and they're making greater advances. So would Ukrainians given the current situation where the proposal by Russia is that we want all the land in the eastern part of the country, and if, I mean, would Ukrainians be willing to accept that? I mean, if Zelensky came tomorrow and said, "Hey, we're going to agree to this, we're going to put it to a referendum," do you think Ukrainians would agree to it?
You mean for the proposal if we stop on the front line, the current front line?
No, no. If we have to, because I don't see. I mean, I don't see a scenario. I mean, sadly, I don't see a scenario in which Russia says, "Okay, we're just going to stop on the front lines." Because sadly, the advantage is to them right now. I mean, unfortunately, in many
Sure.
ways. So I don't see that as a realistic thing. And so the only way, and once again, let me be very clear. I think that if Ukraine gives something to Russia, Russia's going to want more. Russia is not a rational player in all of this. But there's part of me that thinks that President Zelensky should call Putin's bluff and say, "Okay, we'll give you the land. Let's end the war." To see what he does at that moment in time. But if Zelensky says to the Ukrainian people, "Hey, okay, we're going to agree to giving up all the land that Russia wants to end this war," would Ukrainians go along with it?
It's a good point. First, I would say that we shouldn't like be blind. So the Russia doesn't stand alone. So we have some coalition between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So it's a bloc, anti-democratic bloc and allies, which actually agreed, I guess, all the decisions of geopolitical decision here. So many, and I guess Russia in the situation is quite dependent on China position. And back to your question, like I think that Russia like doesn't want only the territory. It don't want like Ukraine. I mean, like to change the power, the regime in Ukraine, Russia language, Russia culture. So they, I guess, the idea is not like just to have some land. So, and you're absolutely right. The Russia continuous attack to occupy all Ukraine, maybe not all, but like this left bank of Ukraine till Dnipro. Because if we read some speeches of Putin, he thinks that the left bank of Ukraine is like a territory of Russia, the right bank is like it partially is territory of Hungary, of Poland, and other countries of the and Ukraine doesn't exist at all. So, and we should like understand that he what he's talking, he believes in this theory. So, if we give more land, if we give Donbass, it won't stop the war at all.
No, I agree. And this is what the world needs to understand is that Russia will not stop. Putin will not stop. I mean, Putin has never honored any international agreement. He is even outside of what he is as a human being. I mean, the reality is that he wants to full restoration of the former Soviet Union. Ukraine is the largest block of that. Yeah, he's not going to stop. So even if President Zelensky says no, and the Ukrainian people continue fighting, uh, you know, Putin is going to keep on. And then you're right; he wants the restoration of the Russian culture and the Russian language So the question then becomes, when does this war end? I mean, to me, and we've talked about this before, is that you know, pushing back on Putin. Listen, I would love for NATO to get involved. I would love for NATO, troops on, boots on the ground, planes in the air, and ships on the sea, as I like to say. But Russia still has its allies within NATO. It has Orban and Hungary, and it's got, others.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you this question: do you think that there are elections happening in Hungary here? People talk about Orban losing. So do you think if Orban loses in Hungary, that will be a benefit for Ukraine?
Yes, I hope that the Orban is going to lose, but like this latest situation with gas and oil prices is simplifying the right movement in the Europe, and we have some tendency among the Europe, and it's a huge problem when the US and can't be like unified and can't be united to support Ukraine. But like our situation with Hungary is terrible, yeah, because like the Ukraine became like one of the key part of the program, electoral campaign of Orban. And we know that the Russia sent a group of analytics from the intelligence service to help Orban to win this election, and they use the fact of Ukraine in his election campaign. So it's a very tough situation with Hungary here.
Well, as I said, it's Russia's got their fingers in everything. They are continuing to manipulate the world. Sadly, I think that I think to go back to one thing you said at the beginning of the show, the American people are still very strongly supportive of Ukraine. They believe in, as an American, we believe in freedom and democracy, and the importance of protecting it. Unfortunately, the President of the United States is not in line with that these days. It's very unfortunate. But I listen, my hat's off to Ukrainians. I mean, what the world must understand If Ukraine falls, Russia will not stop. They will continue. It's exactly what happened prior to World War II, where, the world thought that they could negotiate with Hitler and they cut deals with Hitler and Hitler kept going. And that's exactly what will continue here. But back to your children real quick. I mean, you know, do you believe as a father, that has this built, I mean, I ask you this question, as children, do you think that they now view Russians as just all evil human beings, or do they view this as like, as Putin is an evil human being, or has this built a wedge between Ukrainians and Russia that generationally will be a problem?
My children are still young, and I honestly, I don't see some hate to Russians and to Russian language. So, and I always said that it's not a problem of Russian language or Russian culture, it's a problem of Russian tense. You know this famous phrase, yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually we have been like living like together in the previous century. So, but after this war, I understand that we do need, I know, some several decades in order to have some relationship with this country. We actually know that we have the Second World War, but the situation was that the Germany fully understood their mistake and recognized that regime. Yeah, and I don't know, will we have some situation in Russia? And somehow Russian people understand how devastating impact this regime had on their neighbors, on other nations, on the world, and can recognize that it was a mistake. So if they do recognize and say sorry, it was our fault, it was our mistake, so maybe somehow we can have some relationship between these two nations because the Russia is our like neighbor. We realize this. We have a huge border between Ukraine and Russia with some we do need somehow coexist with Russia. Anyway,
Well, listen, I sadly we're out of time. It's always great seeing you, and I'm sad that I have not been back to Kiev in a while. But as I said, keep fighting. I'm optimistic like you. I applaud the Ukrainians, and I want to say that that you guys are on the front lines of defending freedom and democracy around the world. And if you weren't fighting this good fight, then authoritarianism would be taking over the world. There's no doubt about it. So thank you for all that you're doing and in Ukraine. And I hope you and your family stay safe. And luckily the winter's over, and you can start not having to worry about living in a house and without any heat and without any power. So it's a tough existence, and I applaud you. Anyway, thanks a lot
thank you so
for
much. Thank you so
doing.
much to you, personal Americans, all people who actually support Ukraine among the world. So
Well, thanks a lot,
we
man. I
do
appreciate it.
appreciate. We do value your support.